Hello, everyone. I think we've probably given everyone enough time to join. Apologies, this is running a little bit later than we'd hoped, mainly due to the fact that we were expecting a little more out from Microsoft. That said, I know Maroon has worked very hard on looking into the detail of what's required and what needs to be done around the systems to facilitate this. This presentation is very much around what we'll need to do in NAV or Business Central to facilitate the Brexit requirements. We're not really advising on what you individually need to do to meet your Brexit requirements. That can change on an individual basis depending on whether you're importing, exporting, what you currently do. There's likely to be some changes in things like commercial invoices and things like that, but please do discuss those with us afterwards. Anyway, across to Maruna now, who will give you an overview of the changes that are required in NAV and Business Central. And if you have any questions, then please do publish them in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's to our webinar today. I will start talking about the VAT implications that Brexit will have on your NAV or BC system and how to set up the system to comply with the new requirements. I will also touch on other functionality in the system which may support you going forward. This is intended as a refresher because if you are already doing business with other parts of the world, then you most likely are already using these features. And last, I would like to bring to the discussion some documentation which you may require going forward, as Tom mentioned, commercial packing list and other new requirements introduced around this. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, and please do ask us if you have any questions that you would like to help us with. The short of it is, starting with 1st of January, any dispatches from EU will be treated as exports, and any arrivals will be treated as imports. As you know, the VAT setup in NAV or BC requires two elements to be set up, a VAT business posting group and a VAT product posting group. Because we are looking at a change in the status of the partners you are dealing with, it means that we need to investigate whether any changes are required to the VAT business posting group, which is assigned to customers and vendors, and to some GL accounts as well. So in terms of master data, we will be looking at updating customers, vendors, and GL accounts where appropriate. In terms of transactions, any new transactions going forward, once these changes have been implemented, will use the new setup. Any existing transactions, however, will not be automatically updated, which means you will need to update existing transactions as a separate process. There is a standard VAT rate change tool which Microsoft provides. It only deals with changes in the VAT product posting group, however, which are of no use for our current situation. We have extended this standard functionality to allow for a change in the VAT business posting group. So for any existing transactions, in essence, any sales and purchase orders which you have on the system as of 31st, or which you will have on the system as of 31st of December, you need to investigate whether there are any lines, any transactions, any items which have been shipped but not invoiced, or received but not invoiced. In that case, you will need to make a decision as to how to process those transactions. Because the shipment or the receipt of goods in NAV means that the transaction is already partially processed, it means that from a system point of view, we cannot change VAT setup on those specific document lines. Therefore, for those lines on the orders which have been shipped not invoiced or received not invoiced, you will need to raise a dummy invoice and a credit note on the 31st of December. Of course, if it is not possible for you to actually raise the sales invoice for shipments or to receive an invoice from the supplier before the 31st of December. For any quantities which are outstanding, the new setup will have to apply. You will be able to use the VAT rate change tool to make these adjustments. And the tool will split any lines which have been partially shipped or received, and any outstanding quantity, meaning quantities that have not been shipped or received by the 31st of December, will be created as new lines using the new setup, because those will be transactions which, for all intents and purposes, will be processed in the new year, where new regulations apply, new rules apply. Any lines which have been shipped but not invoiced, or quantities which have been shipped not invoiced, will have to be in the system, will have to be, as I mentioned, closed using the existing setup. Any invoices pertaining to those those movements of goods that will come in January or after 1st of January will need to be manually processed on the system. The changes that we have implemented to the VAT rate change tool will be available to all the customers which are on the supported versions. If there are any older versions, then please contact us separately, and we will discuss the options that are available to you. In terms of the new VAT setup that needs to be implemented, exports will be set up with a zero rate for VAT. And in terms of imports, it will probably depend on whether you will want to use the postponed accounting facility that is offered by HMRC. Starting with 1st of January, HMRC offer a facility to postpone the payment of the import VAT, which means that at the time of importing the goods and processing the receipt of the goods, you will require to record VAT due on imports, as well as VAT that you reclaim on imports on the same return. Therefore, from a cash flow point of view, there will be no implication. No money is going to move between you and HMRC. At the end of each month, HMRC will provide the VAT statement with listing any postponed import VAT, and you will have to adjust the any VAT that you have reported in NAV as import VAT based on those statements to reflect reality. This will happen in subsequent VAT returns. The facility is available to all businesses, but there are some businesses which must use postponed VAT. So if you fall into any of these categories, if you decide you want to use postponed VAT or you must use, then please do contact us, and we will be able to advise you on the actual setup to be used for VAT. In terms of, obviously, the most discussions around VAT imports and exports are around goods. In terms of services, for import of services, it is possible to use the reverse charge functionality. Where it comes to export or selling services, because UK will not be part of the EU anymore, it means that it will be treated as a third world country, and it means that the place of supply rules will apply. If the services, if the place of supply will be that of the customer, a customer in the EU, it means that you probably need to follow the VAT rules in that particular country. So do please check what are the requirements in each EU country where you provide services. there is additional functionality and there are additional features in NAV or BC to support import and export and the and these activities, business activities. It is possible for items to it is possible to specify tariff codes, countries of origin for items. It is possible to specify Incoterms. Historically, the shipment method was used to specify Incoterms, and in addition to that, you can use information like area or place of exit to add additional information for Incoterms. Dealing with external customers in the EU, you will probably have to make with the suppliers in the EU, you'll probably have to make payments. The system comes with out-of-the-box SEPA file payment formats. They may potentially need to be tweaked depending on individual bank requirements, but the basic functionality is available out of the box, especially in the latest version, in the new versions of NAV or BC. You will obviously need to store all documents related to imports and exports, and there is functionality in the system to do that. Either use add-ons like our document receiving or use standard functionality for incoming documents. And last but not least, please be aware of any GDPR related changes, because UK leaving the EU means that the GDPR laws may be different now. In terms of documentation required for customs, we have received several questions from our customers, and I would expect most of our customers will require a commercial invoice, possibly a packing list. There are no standard formats. Obviously, there are some minimum requirements as to what information needs to go on each of these documents, and it depends on the way the system is implemented and the type of business that you have. The layout and the system requirements for those documents, as I said, will be different depending on your business. So please do contact us if you have any specific requirements for them. Generally, because they represent documentation which are required to go with the goods, that you will probably expect to generate them on the back of a for instance, of a sales shipment in the system. But of course, as I mentioned, depending on your implementation and your specific business needs, we may have to provide the functionality for commercial invoice in other areas of the system as well. And as an additional requirement on any documentation required for customs, you should provide an EORI number, which you'll need to obtain if you do not already have. Microsoft have stated that they will provide an update to the system to add an EORI number field to the company information page, and thus making it available to be added to the appropriate documents. If you require this information in any other part of the system, then please let us know. And we are reaching now the Q&A part of the webinar, so please let us know your questions. We have a question regarding commodity codes for items. The question is, how does NAV deal with an item that has more than one commodity code, a gift set with three different products? Unfortunately, out of the box, NAV does not allow a particular part number to have more than one commodity code. It is possible at the moment to specify a single commodity code for a particular part. With gifts which contain three different products, then it would probably the gift will need to be set up as a separate part, and possibly use assembly orders depending on the specific business requirement. Any other questions? Have Microsoft given a date for the EORI edition? Oh, Tom, you were attending the presentation on that. Do we have a date?
Yeah, I believe the update is available already. It just needs to really be applied. I think it came out in the last cumulative update. Essentially, it's just an extra field on the company information table, so it's nothing, nothing too onerous. To my knowledge, they've not applied it to any of the documents. So if it's required on the commercial invoice and things like that, then we'll need to add that to the commercial invoice.
Thank you, Tom. Another question: would it be better to change the VAT posting group for customers and vendors? Yes, this would be our recommended solution, to change the VAT business posting group for customers and vendors. Create a new VAT business posting group for them. Alternatively, you could reuse an existing VAT business posting group, which is export probably, or something similar, or rest of the world. But you could create a new one as well. Either or, you will need to update existing documents. For that, that use the old VAT business posting groups for those customers and vendors. If you have a VAT return period which ends on the 31st of December, and you know that you'll conclude all your transactions pertaining to that period by 31st of December, you could potentially just change the VAT posting setup and leave the setup to be VAT Business Posting Group EU for those customers and vendors. But you need to be very careful and analyze your business carefully in that case, because if your VAT return crosses the new year, then it will not be possible on this return to separate between EU acquisitions and EU imports, in a sense, because you would be using the same VAT business posting group. So we would definitely recommend either creating a new VAT business posting group or using an existing export one, rather than just update the existing VAT posting setup for the current EU customers and vendors. Is NAV 2015 a supported version, and if not, what are the options? Oh, Tom, I will let you answer this one. I lose track of what what are the supported versions. They release new versions so fast.
Yeah, thanks, Maruna. I believe NAV 2015 is out of mainstream support, and Microsoft are only releasing fixes for those in mainstream support. The options are effectively to port the changes required back into any older versions. Now, the further you go back, the more difficult this is. I could say that the option is to upgrade, but really there's not enough time for that. So I'm not going to leave that as an option. But certainly we should be able to port it back into 2015 without a problem.
Thank you, Tom. Another question: if we have a VAT quarter which spans the 1st of January, would it be better to run the VAT on the 31st of December and then close it? I do not think that would be an option, because especially with MTD, you would need to report a full quarter to HMRC. The VAT return periods are downloaded from HMRC, and you need to process a full return period. If with the creation of a new VAT business posting group and the appropriate VAT setup, there will be a change in the VAT return statement, where the new VAT business posting group will need to be taken into account. If any reverse charge setup will be used, then those particular amounts, the VAT amounts, will need to be added to the appropriate boxes 1 and 4. If not, if everything will stay at zero rated, then there will be no impact on the VAT amounts reported. However, you will need to add the value of the transactions themselves to the value of the imports or exports as appropriate. Another question, can we have country of origin, I presume, COO by lot number? It is not out of a functionality which is available out of the box. We have done we have implemented such a change for other customers, and one option would be to store it on a lot card information, or another option would be to store it directly on the item ledger entry, which will store the lot number as well, and therefore use it anywhere else in the system where required. There will probably be needed, there will be rules or rules required in terms of development as to the where the country of code is mandatory, and on what is the input into the system, and as I said, regarding whether it's mandatory or not. So it is possible to do it, but it's not available out of the box. Another question, can we store multiple countries of origin on one item card, and it may come from different countries? Again, unfortunately, it's not a functionality that Microsoft provides out of the box. And I would probably, if multiple countries of origin are a requirement, I would probably look at storing that information on the transaction itself, which means probably item ledger entries if lot numbers are not used, rather than on the item itself. Because if the information needs to be provided on a actual document like a commercial invoice, you would need to know where exactly it comes from, if that level of accuracy is needed. Question, have Microsoft given a date for EORI or EORI edition? That has been answered already. Another question, we will be mid-VAT return in January. Can we still do postpone accounting mid-return? I believe you can. From a system point of view, at least, I do not see a reason for you not to do that. You will simply have new VAT posting set up, and you'll have new transactions which will use that setup. And as I mentioned earlier, you will check either the customs documents or HMRC VAT statement monthly, and you will see whether any adjustments are needed and put those through in the next return. But from a system point of view, I do not see a problem with that. If we create new posting groups, would mass change be possible? Yes, the VAT rate change tool with our amendments to it will allow you to do a mass change in the VAT business posting group for customers and vendors and GL accounts, and also it will allow you to change the VAT business posting group on those document lines which where it is possible. And as I mentioned, for document lines, purchase order lines or sales order lines, if the line has not been shipped or received, then the existing line will be updated with a new VAT business posting group, on the assumption that that particular line will be processed after 1st of January. If the line has been fully shipped or received, then the system will ignore that line, it will not apply the change. So the VAT business posting group will be the old one, and therefore it will be treated as an EU transaction. And this is why it is important to finalize that transaction, meaning you need to invoice that line prior to 31st of December, whether you have the invoice or not from a system point of view. If you do not have the actual invoice, then you need to raise a credit memo. And when the invoice comes after 1st of January, you'll need to put it through as a manual transaction, not with items, just a GL account line. If lines are partially shipped or invoiced, then any quantity shipped or invoiced will stay on that existing line, and the existing line will not be modified. Any quantity which is outstanding, meaning quantity not shipped or quantity not received on that line, will be moved to a new line and the new VAT business posting group used. On the existing line, the quantity will be downdated to equal the quantity shipped or received, and on the new line, the quantity will be set to be the outstanding quantity from the original line. Therefore, the two lines will sum up to the original quantity, or the quantity of the original line. Next question. Does the VAT statement template need amending for postponed VAT accounting? Most likely, yes. You will have a new VAT business posting group for your EU customers and vendors. It will have a reverse charge for imports if you create a new VAT business posting group, which would probably be advisable too. And therefore, you will have to amend the VAT statement template to account for those combinations of the new VAT business posting group and all the appropriate VAT product posting groups, both on the side, on the sections which deal with the VAT amounts and on the sections which deal with the base amounts. Another question, will you be providing a step-by-step guide for changes that we need to make? Yes, we will provide either as a document or as a video, but we will provide you in instructions in how to use the VAT change tool and bullet point information as to the order of the steps which you need to take. If you have any questions that may not be answered by that documentation, specifically for your scenarios, then please contact us and separately, and we'll be more than happy to help. That was the last question. Any other questions? Oh, we have more questions. Do you have any handoff notes for this session so I can discuss with the finance manager in the company, please? We will provide a recording. Am I right, Jesse, Tom?
Yes, we'll be. Yes, we'll be providing the recording for this session, and I think, as Maruna said, we will also be releasing the details of what changes will be required to be made. You know, some of these are individual to your individual company, so you know, if there are any questions come out on the back of that, we will be making people available to answer any of those questions as required.
We need to provide the commercial. Another question. Thank you very much, Tom. Another question. We need to provide the commercial invoice in advance of exports. Can we do this without shipping the parts of NAV? This is where this is what I mentioned before when I said that depending on your particular requirements, we may need to make the commercial invoice as a document available in other parts of the system rather than from a posted sales shipment, for instance. And the answer is yes, we could, for instance, make it available either from an unposted shipment or from an open order. It all depends on what are your requirements in terms of the document layout and what other changes may be allowed to that particular document, to the particular NAV document once we do a printout, because obviously if we do a printout from for instance, an open sales order, if you then change the lines and you put other products on the order, then the commercial invoice will not match what's going to be on the shipment. So yes, it is possible. We will need to discuss the particulars of what is required for that commercial invoice. And from past experience working with other customers, it may be possible that specific countries require specific layouts for the commercial or specific information on the commercial invoice. There are some countries where, for instance, the document number must be the same on the commercial invoice as on the sales invoice and the final invoice. So specific requirements for different countries, please do bear that in mind, but I'm sure you already know that. Any other questions?
I think that's it. If there are any other questions, then do email us or give us a call, and we'll answer them directly. We intend to get certainly the amended VAT change tool and instructions out to people by the end of this week. so that you can then try it in your test systems. We do recommend that you try it in your test system first, so that you're au fait of what's required to be done at the end of the month, and it gives us chance really to iron out any issues before the the first day of January. Where we're probably expecting a number of calls in at that time. So anything that we can get ironed out in advance would be great. So I think we'll call it there. Thank you very much for that, Maruna. Thank you for your efforts putting that together. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.